microphone today? Well, Brother Johnson, you ready this morning?
All right.
Come on. Thank you for tuning Monday, brother.
Well, we miss those that are not here, but we never know what's in the future. I would that all them preachers could be here during the Sunday school class. That way, if I made any mistakes, maybe one of them know enough about it to correct me. But we got to do the best we can. We're privileged that we can come to church. It is a blessing. Many people in the world don't have the opportunity to come to church in safety. They're in danger of even losing their very life if they. We're started into the 12th chapter of Revelations last week. Now, as I've said, I believe Revelations is a series of visions that don't always one follow the other exactly. Sometimes they overlap, and sometimes you got two visions, and then really covers the same period of time. This covers it from a different aspect. Just like you have 4 Gospels. They all tell the same story. But sometimes one tells something the other one doesn't. And so I think there's a lot in Revelation. Yeah. Now it's written in symbolic language greatly. And also, you've got the division among the Christian people. And if you follow the pre-trib rapture teachings, it's guaranteed that you'll disagree with me. Because the people teaching pre-trib teach everything in Revelations after the rapture of the church. It has to happen after the rapture. Nothing happens between Christ's crucifixion and rapture in Revelations, according to them, beginning with chapter 4, verse 1. I think you're mistaken. I'm not trying to unchristianize anybody that's cut their sins under blood, living right. But I think Revelations covers from Christ forward, and even a few passages might go back into before Christ. Now, in the 12th chapter, it says a woman gives birth to a son here. Now, last week, Steve said, Israel brought forth Christ. Christ brought forth the church. I can't disagree with that. But we'll start with the first verse again. We read 2 or 3 of them last week. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and up on her head a crown of 12 stars. Now people question who these 12 stars are. Some say it's the 12 apostles. I honestly cannot be positive myself. It's just, she's got the sun, the moon, clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet. But she showed in a gorgeous setting. Now, I can agree Israel brought forth Jesus Christ. Christ was promised to Israel. Then when Christ came on the scene, he died. His death established the church. But here's something I believe, that when Christ came, God separated the people of Israel like blood. Those who did not believe were broken out of the good tree. 11th chapter of Romans. Then the Gentiles who did believe was grafted into the good tree. He said, I would not have thee be ignorant concerning this, how that it is written, all Israel shall be saved. So I believe all Israel is saved. Because today I believe it's the church. I do not believe it's a bunch of people by bloodline. And if you use the bloodline, like I said last week, I've teased some of the Pentecostal brothers that believe that. I said, well, how much of the holy blood do I have to have in my veins to make sure that I'm saved? I said, well, just a little dab, dude. And because, see, quite often, there was 12 tribes in Israel, and actually the tribe of Joseph was split into Ephraim and Manasseh, which really makes 13. And the 10 northern tribes were carried away into captivity in 725, but the promise in 600 BC was that God would make a covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judea. He included both sections of the original nation, all 12 tribes. So any covenant made will be with all 12 tribes. I believe it was made in the times of Jesus Christ, because the 8th chapter of Hebrews quotes that it's talking of Christ making a new covenant. In these, well, I think I got a little bit of something in my throat.
You needed it.
You know, I always feel very conscious of taking a bite of food or drinking something in the sanctuary of the church.
We won't tell nobody if you don't.
So, here's the thing. Did God separate the 69th and 70th week and make the 70th week to be fulfilled after the rapture? Now this is what they're teaching. Now, after the rapture, God's going to save everybody that's an Israelite. Guaranteed. God's going to make a new covenant with Israel. Then with the absence of the Holy Ghost and with the absence of the church, they're going to go out and 3.5 years, they're going to get a multitude saved that nobody can number. Suggesting that they are going to get a multitude greater than the church got in 2,000 years. I think that's a mistake. I think a multitude that no one can number goes from Christ to the end. Now, but here it says, and being with child, cried, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. We're introduced to a dragon again in the 13th chapter with 10 crowns. That's the only difference. He's gained 3 crowns. But now here's the thing. In Revelation 13, it very absolutely, they say, this beast is the Antichrist. I say it's not so. The beast is identified in the 12th chapter here as being the devil. And he drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the ground. And the dragon stood before the woman which was to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now, when Jesus came on the scene, Satan done everything he could do to stop him. I mean, he acted through people. Herod says, kill all the kids under 2 years old in Bethlehem. Stop this man that's going to be king. He didn't care that it was the will of God. He said, I'm going to stop him. Man has always had a problem with listening to Satan. And Satan's desire is to replace God. And he wants you to worship him. He will put somebody up in, the Roman emperors. If you don't worship us, we'll kill you. You must burn sacrifice to the Roman emperor or as a god, or we'll kill you. Now, it said, sometime in the past, There was rebellion in heaven. I don't understand it. Just it says Satan and his angels were cast down. Now, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Now, to me, that's a definition of Jesus Christ. He was caught up, and he is going to rule. There'll be a new heaven and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. I believe this is a pretty well quote from the Bible. So there's coming a time that Acts chapter 3 said he must go into the heavens until he comes back with the right, and then he will restore all things. There's coming a time that Christ will come and restore everything just as it should be. The ungodly will be cast in the lake of fire. And regardless of where you argue heaven is going to be, it's going to be heaven to those that are there. You know,
Yeah.
someone said, well, it's going to be up above, it's going to be here on earth, it's going to be, I don't argue the point too strongly. I just believe when he comes back, come on in, boys, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
It's going to be paradise. I can't describe what I'm saying. I can't tell you what color the walls in the mansions are. I don't know. Just, they're there. By faith, I believe they're there.
You know, Brother Johnson, I've heard people all my life, the people that I think are really Christians, if you will, they go like this, they're like, I don't care about no crown, I don't care about no streets of gold, give me an old dirt road, old red clay dirt road from Tennessee, I don't care. Just as long as I'm there with the Lord. That, to me, that's what people that really are saved and want to go home.
It's like it's going to be paradise.
Yeah.
If it's a dirt road, it'll be awful nice road.
Arlie, when Arlie Grigsby was a pastor here, he used to always say that the best cone of cornbread he'll ever eat will be in heaven.
And the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, in that, we have great divisions. Some says this is the time of the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, which will happen after the church is gone. I say no. When Jesus was born, Rome had just been in control of Israel about 60-some years. So, when the church was preaching for the first 325 years, Rome was pagan. 325 AD, approximately, I might be a day or two off, Constantine professed to become a Christian. I don't believe his profession. I think he just took a political advantage because a lot of people were becoming Christian in the Roman Empire, and the thing was a little shaky then. But he remained a pagan priest also when he took over the head of the Christian church. From thereafter, the Roman Emperor run the church until 533 AD. At that time, the emperor, they have a letter where he wrote to the Pope, recognizing the Pope as being his superior. And if you'll come from then to 1793, in France, they had a rebellion. The church was totally rotten. They began to, it was a communist type rebellion, but when Napoleon came into power, he took the Pope captive and he was placed in captivity. There finally was an agreement, and the Pope remained under what I guess we would call house arrest. Once he became the Pope and he remained in the Vatican, he was not supposed to leave. They kept that till about 1960. In the 60s, they come to the Pope visited in America. And some of the people complained about giving this much security to a religious leader. The government's reply was, he's not only a religious leader, he's the head of the state. We always provide security for heads of state. So the Vatican is a nation, and has always been. For 1,260 years, and I believe this is the 1,260 days year. Take the day for a year, when Babylon, for 1,260 years, the Catholic Church hunted down everybody that would not agree with the Pope and killed them. They burned them at the stake, they pulled them apart, they chopped them up, and I seen one record. They caught this Protestant preacher in the Alp Mountains in the wintertime, snow and ice, so built a big bonfire. On the other side, they piled up a big pile of ice, and they staked him down on the ground. These were Catholic Christians. And they staked him down on the ground, so they covered him up with red-hot fire coals for a little while, and then they raked him off. And then they got ice, and they covered him up with ice for a little while. And then they raked it off. They alternated until he died to see how long he could live like that. Make no mistake, those folks claim to be Christian, but nobody has been no more horrible to the Christian people. For 1,260 long years, now, 1800, when the Pope was taken captive, they were wounded. They no longer had the power that they had previously had. They have never agreed that they done wrong. They have always, but now they got to push, come back home, boys, to the Protestant people. And you know what it is? It's a betrayal. We can't go back, not to that. Now in here, she fled into the wilderness. Now to me, how did the church survive for those 1,260 years? They had no power. They had no armies. They really, majority of them had no money. So how did they survive? By the hand of God. And only by that. Now, Steve preached, which I believe there's coming a period of time in the future when they're going to try to enslave the world. Your bank account won't save you. The Constitution, a document that I would have to say I have a love for, it's not going to save you, because it sits in the hands of 9 people. And all 5 of them can say whatever they want. We are not saved only in one aspect, Jesus Christ. There is one of their safety. Now then, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. Now here it said a third part of the stars were drawn out of heaven. So it looks like a portion of the angels in heaven followed Lucifer, or followed the dragon when he came out of heaven, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found anymore in heaven. Now here's a question that is, when did this happen?
First name.
It sounds like past tense there when we were reading it. Surely it's not talking about it. But they were cast down. So when did it happen? Some say it's crucifixion. Some says before man was created. Honestly, I don't know. I just believe it happened. And it has happened. And the great dragon was cast out. That old serpent, called the devil, and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the world, and his angels were cast out with him. In our next chapter we're going to get into, we got brilliantly intelligent preachers on television and in the pulpits preaching. But this dragon, in the 13th chapter, it's classified as a beast, is the Antichrist. And I say, no, the beast is Satan. All the Antichrists have been a product of his influence. They've been men, but they get their source of direction from him. And they have one goal in mind: enslave the people and bring them under their worship. They have so much money now that it's immaterial if they get another $1 billion. What they don't have is your soul. And that's what they want. It's the old satanic influence, probably since the days of Babel, when Nimrod, when the first records we have. Satan wants man to worship him because he wants to take from God what rightfully belongs to God. And it's been this thing, it's been, the same spirit was in Hitler. It was in Mussolini. It was in Stalin. It was in each of these great emperors that rose up and tried to run the world. It was in them. They want to control you. They want your worship, your reverence. You bow to them. You don't bow to God. See, a Christian, if he lives in a slave government, he's still a good person. But they won't accept that. You can't go to church and worship God. You can't say Jesus is the only way of salvation. You must put me first. That's the same thing the Spirit rose up in Satan in the beginning when he tried to exalt himself above God. He tries to take from God that belongs to God. And God loves me and you, so Satan hates us. Now, he don't care a bit to sacrifice somebody or to get what he wants. He don't bother him a bit. They were cast out with him. So now I believe the devil and his angels have been cast out of heaven. I think that's past tense. And I believe the beast here with the 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns is the devil. I believe this just identifies him. We'll find him again in the 13th chapter and again in the 17th chapter of Revelation. And I hear the voice in heaven now saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of his brethren is cast down, which accused him before our God day and night. Now, I don't fully understand this about the casting him out. Just like we'll get over a little bit further, we're going to find why he's put in the bottomless pit. And there's some questions there that I don't quite understand. And they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb. Now this 1260 years of horrible persecution against the Christian people, they overcame for one reason and one reason only. That's the blood. Now, my wife used to can. She loved home canning. She can. You know, you put your beans in the jar and you heat it up and you seal it with a lid and you turn it upside down and let when the pressure drops down enough inside, they pull that lid down tight. as long as you don't let nothing go in there, them beans will last a long time. This is the same thing with me and you. When we got saved, we got sealed by the blood. That will keep evil out of our hearts if you won't override it and invite it in. Now you can reach out of that can and pull the evil in, and it'll contaminate his yard. But through the blood, you're given the ability to walk in obedience to God. Don't mean you know everything. Don't mean you won't be mistaken about some little something or another. But it means you will always have, if you listen to the Spirit of God, you'll always have a mind to do the will of God. Jesus prayed for me and you, prayed for the apostles, and he prayed for them that would believe through their preaching, which would include me and you. And he prayed to the Father like this: make them one as you and I are one. So, how is that possible? Jesus said, I come to do thy will, O God. When he prayed in the garden, he said, not my will, but thy will be done. If Dave, Fowler, Josh, me, if we commit ourselves, each one individually, to do the will of God to the best of our ability, we become one in Christ. Just like in the Old Testament, the king got mad at the man of God. He said, all these other prophets, they speak to me with one mouth. In other words, they told him, go ahead and do whatever you want to, God's going to bless it. But the man of God said, no, that's not right. So, in other words, united together, that's the way the Father and the Son, they're one in total unity. Jesus, not my will, but thy will be done. Now then, and they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they love not their lives unto the death. Would you die before you would deny the Lord? It ain't about pleasing me. But would you die before denying your faith? It's something to think about. It's easy to talk. But when you take the young lady back there, her little girl. When that girl said, Mommy, I ain't got nothing to eat. Well, she stand there and say, I won't deny Christ. Here, we'll feed you, baby. Just deny Christ. No. Christians faced that 1,260 years under the Roman Catholic Church, refusing to put the Pope in place of God was a death penalty. It's not politically correct to teach that now, but it's true history. Now, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil has come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. How much does the devil understand? I don't know. He was trying to devour the Christ, but did he understand he would fail? I don't know. But we do know that he lives among us now on the earth, and his goal is to devour the Christian church. Amen. The New World Order is nothing more than the old satanic ideal, I want to control you. And when they get up, just like they just introduced, you know, when this fellow bought Twitter and all of a sudden he says he's going to have free speech, And all of a sudden, our president says he's creating a board of disinformation. He put the biggest liar in America on it
Sure did,
to run it.
absolutely.
Why? They want to control you. They want your soul. Your money, they can take that any day they want to right now. They can declare it now. My daughter-in-law told me that in 1949 in Germany, one day they announced money no longer has any value. They come out and they issued each family 60 marks. The old marks had no value. They had to store the one fellow who sold his farm on one Friday. The next Friday, what he got for his farm wouldn't buy his supper. So they have control of the money right now. But what they don't have, they can't tell us here yet, you can't go down there and pray.
It's not far away.
Then this is what they want.
Brother Johnson, when the devil took Jesus up on the pinnacle, and he said, look at all the world, I'll give it all to you, if you'll just fall down and worship me. Well, Jesus told him no, and he said no. He just flat out refused him and everything like that. But that was the Lord. The problem today is the world is being offered everything under the sun, and they're gobbling up like a Pac-Man. They're taking it in. I'll show you an example. Last night I was at the store, and there was a boy there, about 20-some years old, was buying the beer. All of the younger guys, they were buying a pop or a candy bar or something like that. And that really bothered me because here these young guys are all going to go out drinking and driving last night. There were probably 6 of them got out of this one car, and they're following that one older kid that is going to buy their booze for them. Every day they're told, let's go out, let's have a good time, let's party, let's do this, let's do that. They're not told they need to be in church today. And that's a big problem. They're taking everything in nowadays. Whatever the people tell them, whatever's wrong, whatever, they're jumping at it.
Well, too many men are not chasing women that are married. And too many women, grandmas is trying to be 18-year-old granddaughters. And they ain't got time for their children. And then this is a sad factor. I was thinking this week, my grandmother couldn't read and write. She could cook. She could peel the bark off from a hickory tree in the bottom of a chair. She could take a piece of leather and a nail and a hammer and a shoe lash and repair a shoe, but she couldn't read and write. But you know what? She never did have any trouble telling the girls from the boys when they were born into the family.
They have a problem finding out today.
But we got a Supreme Court judge that don't know what a woman does.
Couldn't tell you what a woman is.
But Grandma knew, see, I can kind of remember the old ladies, you know, back, especially before I was born, children were born at home because it was safer.
Yeah.
Contagious diseases, they spread like wildfire through a hospital. And it was safer, your record of living was better if you stayed at home because you were familiar with the bacteria in your home. So, my wife followed the same principle. I watched her. I never did say nothing to her about it, I watched her. When my grandchildren was born, God brought them to come over. After a while, sometimes Jess would sit down, and she would start counting fingers, ears, eyes, nose. She'd pull that baby's clothes off. She would look to see that everything was in its proper place. She doesn't ever would have born a girl. But this woman, so you can see how far our world has come. This woman got all PhDs, whatever, behind her name, should have known the difference between a boy and a girl.
Supreme Court judge can't tell you what a woman is.
So, and dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecutes the woman which brought forth the man-child, and to the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, and she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. Now I believe the church was preserved by God. I believe He provided the preservation. We died. Christians have died. Not just 200 or 300. Christians have died by the millions. I mean, it's a pretty well established fact. It's not kosher to teach that in church anymore because too many Protestant leaders want to go back home to the Catholic Church. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. They have done everything within their power to destroy the church. People talk of coming persecution. Look at your past. How could it get any worse than what it was then? They just got a little more technology to run you down now. That's the only difference. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out. Now, we're not talking about a literal flood of water the dragon had. We're talking about evil. If we had not have had help, we would not have survived. And I believe this is a symbolic story showing us that God did preserve the church. God can preserve you or me. Or He can give us the courage to die. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Satan has never been at peace with the church, never will be at peace with the church, because it's contrary to his very nature, because he's jealous of God, wants to set himself above God, and we are precious to God. God loves us. Therefore, Satan hates us. And when we worship God, he's beside himself with anger. And he has tried since the dawn of time to bring man under his rulership, where he can require man to worship him. And this is what the communists, Christians make good citizens, but the communists persecute them. All the Christians ask us is, let me pray, I'll pay my taxes, I won't cause no trouble. But the communists won't accept that. Neither will the Muslims. Neither will the so-called radical socialist. Liberalism is another name for communism. Actually, when you get into real liberalism, or what they call liberalism today, it's simply a substitute name for communism. They don't accept your right to pray. Even they haven't had people speak out in this president's administration saying, well, the people don't have a right to this and that. I knew this guy, he was a Christian brother. His son just put on Facebook to my daughter, they should leave those teachers alone and let them teach the children what they want to do. And here this boy comes from a Christian home. He's probably the age of Dixie, my daughter Dixie. He put on Sharon's Facebook, Sharon said if he does that again, I'm blocking him off. Said Sharon, but they have got people to see. What did they say? Listen, a machine is a machine. I got a radio, I haven't turned it on in maybe 5 or 6 times since Janice passed away. I let Mark buy my television and I tried watching it, went through it. I spent an hour last night searching for something that was fitting to watch. And I never did succeed. Some of the YouTube videos, but the entertainment you're given, I mean, how can a Christian enjoy seeing somebody get somebody down and stomp them and cut their heads off even though it's make-believe? How can they enjoy seeing someone making a date with another man's wife and then going in and pulling their clothes off? If you enjoy that, you're entering into the spirit of it. You see these girls, some of them are pretty. They ain't got enough clothes on to go to bed in. And these guys sitting there and their eyes about falling out. They're committing adultery about where they sit. It's wrong.
That's what the women are wanting, I mean, that's why they dress that way.
See,
It is.
the grace of God has taught me and you that that's wrong. That we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. People say, oh, I'll get to heaven, I'm going to be perfect. You better try to be down here. As much as you're able, much as you understand, walk in the holiness of God. Satan will kill you if he's able to, for that. It very well could be a death sentence when you begin to walk in the holiness of God, because darkness hates light. We've run out of time. And I wish the preachers could have been here. I don't want to sneak nothing in.
You're not gonna see recorded at all.
I need to let you. All right, take a break.
Thanks.
Uh,
But Steve comes